Welcome, everyone, to this Living in Oneness Summit program. I'm Steve Farrell, the Worldwide Executive Director for Humanities Team, and it's great to be with you. We have a fabulous program in store. You can see right here in the window my special guest today, Gregg Braden. Greg, do you want to say hi real quick?
I want to say, more than hello, I want to say welcome. I want to say I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today. We've got so much to talk about, and I know our time is going by very quickly. I'm going to share some brand new discoveries, and I'm happy to be with you, Steve, and our worldwide audience today. Thank you for having me back.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Greg's going to be part of Global Oneness Day again this year, too, so you'll see more of Greg this year. I'm going to just intro this program and intro Greg, and then you'll hear a lot more from him shortly. This is going to be an informative and fun 60-minute program. This live video format is what we use most weeks when we do our Living in Oneness Summit 12 Spheres broadcasts. These are usually on Thursdays. We're super excited about adding live video to our programs this year. A little about Humanities Team as we get started. Our focus in Humanities Team is awakening ourselves and the world to oneness. We see one presence, the divine, and see we are all emanations of this one presence. Doesn't matter how far our lives may be from reflecting this truth, it's still true. Our invitation is to live as authentically as we can as emanations of the divine, and in this, we give our lives purpose, meaning, and joy. We believe all of life is a manifestation of the divine, is sacred, and should be treated as such. I'd also like to extend an invitation to those of you who receive value from our weekly programming. Our weekly programs cost us about $1,000 to produce from end to end. We provide these programs, of course, free to the public. If you find value in our programming, we invite you to go to humanitiesteam.org. We're in the window. We're going to put a link, and you'll see donate. Invite you to contribute to our program. We are going to keep these programs free for viewers. Thank you. As we begin, I'd like to invite you to share your questions during this program. The earlier in the program, the better, so that we make sure that we get to them. My colleague, Caroline Chang, is going to come on now to tell you how you can share your questions during the program. Caroline.
Thank you, Steve. Everybody, if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see a control panel, and in that control panel, towards the bottom, there should be there's a question panel, and you can actually type your question in for Greg and for Steve at any time. And like Steve said, the earlier you put in your question, the better. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Caroline Chang. She's one of the many angels that create this program and help get it out in the world. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to introduce our special guest now. Gregg Braden is a 5-time New York Times best-selling author and is internationally renowned as a pioneer in bridging science, spirituality, and the real world. From 1979 to 1990, Gregg worked for Fortune 500 companies such as Cisco Systems, Phillips Petroleum, and Martin Marietta Defense Systems as a problem solver during times of crisis. He continues problem solving today as he weaves modern science and the wisdom preserved in remote monasteries and forgotten texts into real world solutions. His discoveries have led to 11 award-winning books, now published in over 40 languages. The United Kingdom's Watkins Journal lists Gregg among the top 100 most spiritually influential living people for the 5th consecutive year. And in 2017, he received a nomination for the prestigious Templeton Award. He shares his presentations and trainings with the United Nations, Fortune 500 companies, the U.S. military, and is now featured in media specials airing on major networks throughout North and South America, Mexico, and Europe. Welcome, Gregg, again, to the Living.
Welcome, Steve. Welcome our live viewing audience. I'm talking to you today from my home, my office in the high deserts of northern New Mexico, crystal clear blue skies and cool, thin air of northern New Mexico. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be a part of this new format, Steve. I think this is the first time we've done this through a video interaction, and I'm looking forward to seeing the questions from the audience and where we go today.
Me too. So, and listeners, yeah, big hello to all of you. Thanks for joining us. I'm in Boulder, Colorado, so we're Gregg and I are on the Rockies. He's on the southern edge. I'm more toward the middle here, a little further north.
Same time zone. Same time zone,
which is real handy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start with some questions, and again, I'm going to be looking for your questions, and I'll bring them in here, listeners. Okay, you've written a book, Gregg, that says we must accept the responsibility that we can change the world by changing ourselves. That's in resilience from the heart. Can you talk about this? Certainly that is wisdom that offers a lot of value today.
Well, I think it's wisdom that we've all heard in one form or another anecdotally. What's important for me, Steve, is I'm a scientist. I was trained as a scientist. I'm a degree geologist. And I've worked in scientific and technical careers most of my life before we began the kind of engineering that we're talking about now. We call this consciousness engineering. And I think it's important, the science is important, because it is a language that is inclusive. So many people feel excluded when we have these conversations about consciousness or the energy body of a human, because it is for some people a very different way of thinking, maybe not for this audience right now. But to make bring about the kind of change that we're talking about, we are attempting to reach far beyond this audience that we call the choir. We're attempting to reach deep, deep, deep into the heart of a mainstream audience, mainstream corporations, mainstream politics, mainstream policies. And to have that kind of reach, we need to find a language that's trusted, that is respected, that is honored, and is relatively neutral. And so science is that language. For me, it's the language I'm using now. There are other languages we may use, but for right now, it's science. So here's the thing, Steve. Science is showing us, beyond any reasonable doubt, what we have felt intuitively for so long, that we are actually connected. And I want to talk about some new discoveries that are showing us we're connected in ways that we're only beginning to understand. Intuitively, I think we sense that. But the science, once it shows us how the connection occurs, the value of the science is that it can also show us what we can do in our personal and collective lives to influence that connection in a positive, in a healthy way. And I think that's where the value of the research and the science really comes together. So we are connected. Our ancestors have told us that for a very long time in a way that wasn't science, but it worked for them. We know that we're connected on many, many levels. Certainly on the quantum level, we're still exploring what that means. We know that every human heart, around every human heart, there is a field of energy that radiates about 5 to 8 feet, and it looks visually, we can see it on the computer screens, Steve, it looks like what's called a tube torus. It looks like a big donut that encompasses the entire human body. And this is not the prana, it's not the aura. It may be linked to the prana and the aura, but it is a conventional electromagnetic field. You can go down to Home Depot and buy the equipment if you wanted to tune it to find this field. I mean, that's how tangible and how conventional it really is. But now we're beginning to find that this field extends far beyond those 5 to 8 feet. That's the limitation of the equipment. And that this field is actually coupled with the magnetic field of the planet that we live on. And this is a huge piece of information because it means we have the ability to ride the power of a planetary magnetic field, not to control, but to influence in very positive ways our relationship to that field and what that field means to us. So I know that's a big statement. Let me go back and break that down a little bit. I mentioned I was going to share some new science. I was speaking just last week with a lead researcher at the Institute of Heart Math. It's capital H-E-A-R-T, capital M-A-T-H. Many of our listeners are familiar with Heart Math, some are not. Heart Math is a pioneering research organization based in Northern California, exploring the power of the human heart in unconventional ways, in ways that are typically not explored in medical school, for example. And they're the ones that discovered this field, the torus, around the human heart. They're also exploring the relationship between the human heart and the earth. So let me just share the experiment that they performed recently in Northern California. Well, throughout the state of California, they had participants wear a harness that registers their heart rate variability over a 24-hour period. Heart rate variability is every time we see a heartbeat, we see the big spike and then a couple little ones and a big spike and a couple little ones. The time between that one big spike and the next varies with each heartbeat, and it is called HRV, heart rate variability. This is the QRS complex, so it's the time from one R wave to the next, to the next, to the next. So it's different for all of us, and it varies from beat to beat. So they fitted the participants with these harnesses so that they could measure over a 24-hour period what was happening with their heart rates. And they expected, because the people had different lifestyles, they were in different parts of, this is one state in California, because they were in different parts of the state doing different things, everybody's HRV would be different, but it would average out. They expected it just kind of average out to, you know, pretty much a straight line. Wow, when the data came in, nothing could be further from the truth. All of these people, regardless of where they lived and regardless of their lifestyle and what they were doing professionally, every one of them had synchronized. They were synchronized, so when the heart rates were up for one, they were up for all. When the heart rate was down for others, it was down for all. And it was beyond coincidence, Steve. They said there has to be a unifying factor that these heart rates are responding to, because the people themselves are so spread out, so diverse, they don't know one another, they've got different jobs, they're responding to an external force. What could that be? Well, based on previous research, they overlaid this with some other data, and they took a look at the magnetic field of the Earth. And what they found is that when the frequencies of Earth, these are called Schumann cavity resonant frequencies, when these frequencies were up, every one of those heart rate variability readings went up. When the frequencies were down, the same thing happened. Scientists can't say that one thing causes something else. Rarely do you hear scientists say it's the cause. What they'll say is that there's a high correlation. So the correlation between the rise and the fall, the ebb and the flow of the magnetic fields of the Earth and the ebb and the flow of human heart rate variability was beyond coincidence. Said, my God, we are tuned, at least this small group of people. So they said, we need a bigger study. So they went with a larger study, 5 countries, 240 people, I think, were involved, 140 people were involved over 5 countries. And they collected over 150 million heartbeats to feed into the system. And when they got the information back, the researchers were, I don't think they were surprised, they were in awe. They were in awe because it was exactly the same results on a broader scale with many more people, 5 different countries. What it's showing is that we are deeply influenced by what happens, the magnetic fields of this planet. And this is important because it influences our mood, it influences our physiology, it influences our intuition, it influences our ability to work together and cooperate, it influences when we become aggressive and don't want to cooperate. All of these factors are now linked in to our relationship to Mother Earth, just as our indigenous ancestors have told us for a very long time. So here's the reason that this was important. In 2001, scientists made an initial discovery, and this was around the time, it was on the date of September 11th, 2001. It was on that date that the satellites in the northern hemisphere they were actually measuring, they measure the magnetic fields of the Earth, send back data to scientists every 30 minutes, because we're all tuned to these fields. Every blade of grass, every hamster, every goldfish, every CEO of every corporation, every leader of every nation is tuned to the fields. So there is no them and us when it comes to these fields. There is we, and because of that, scientists keep a very close track on what's happening with this field. So they were used to seeing the data come back. It would ebb and flow every day, rise and fall, rise and fall. Scientists are very accustomed to seeing that. And one day, the data came back and there was a huge spike. And they said, you know, what is that? What on earth? I mean, what on earth is going on the Earth to cause that kind of a spike? And they overlaid it onto a calendar of time. And Steve, what they found is that the spike happened 15 minutes after the first plane hit the first tower of the World Trade Center. That was the 15 minutes that the images made it around the world through satellite networks onto people's televisions, and people were responding emotionally from their hearts what they saw. And there were a lot of responses. Some of them were fear, some were anger, some were sadness, but it was all heart-based emotion. So here's why I'm sharing this. Scientists believe it was on that day for the first time the data showed them that those hundreds of millions of people collectively have an experience, a heart-based experience, synchronized in the same moment in time. Our heart fields are so powerful magnetically that those fields coupled with the Earth's magnetic fields and actually spiked the magnetic fields of the Earth. Now, this is a big thing for scientists because we've been led to believe we're separate from the Earth, that we're separate from one another, and that there is no way a human or a group of humans could possibly influence the magnetic fields of an entire planet. So what this showed, it was a tragedy, unfortunately, that led the scientists to understand that hundreds of millions of collective human hearts feeling genuine feelings of care, heart-based feelings in the same moment in time, have the ability to influence the magnetic fields of the planet in a positive way. This is important because if you remember, our listeners, if you remember even just for a few days after 9/11, what our world felt like, what our countries felt like, and for most of us, we were very close. America was very close. The world, we had a global family, at least for a few days. And scientists attribute that positive connection of many people to the stronger magnetic field of the Earth. When the magnetic fields are strong, we are less aggressive, more cooperative, more willing to open ourselves to one another and to our oneness. When the magnetic fields are low, we are, statistically, we're more aggressive, less cooperative, and we sometimes become a little isolated, a little defensive. So 9/11 showed the scientists, and by the way, they were measuring this through the satellites, as we mentioned. It showed scientists that we have the ability to influence in a positive way the fields of our planet that reflect in our willingness to cooperate and become a global family. The studies that I just shared from last week show just the opposite now, not the opposite, but in the opposite direction. Not only do we influence the fields of the Earth, but the studies show that the fields of the Earth influence us. Now, intuitively, you might be saying, what's the big deal? We've all known that. And I think we sense it. This is the first time science is catching up with what we have sensed to be true about ourselves. And because of that, science is now in a position where they are beginning to write a new story of us and our relationship to one another, our relationship to our brothers and sisters all over the planet, our relationship to the planet itself. A new human story is emerging. It is a story that is based on rock-solid science and is a story of oneness and connectivity. So I wanted to start with that today, Steve, so we could tie into it if we need to, but my concern is if a lot of questions, we're going to go into a lot of tangents, and I might not get to that today. So we now know we have a two-way conversation going on with the planet under our feet. I think that is, I mean, it's beyond exciting. It's mind-boggling that the science now is able to actually demonstrate this in a way that is concrete and tangible.
Yeah, boy, that's stunning. And don't you wish that in standard science and what is taught in schools that this information were understood? And it's getting out there. It's becoming more and more well known. When you first started talking about this a while back, it was not as well known. But now there's increasing awareness. Greg, by the way, there are lots of questions pouring in from listeners.
Okay.
We're going to get to your questions here, listeners, in a moment. Thank you, all of you. We've got a great listening audience here. Greg, what can we do consciously now with what you're sharing? You're sharing that we're coming into this family, into this oneness, this coherence. I'm guessing it just means that we can become more of an alchemist, can't we? Because if we're conscious of this connection between ourselves and others and the Earth, this one presence that we're connected to, and if we can stay in this place of peace and blessing and grace and beauty and etc., which is what the one presence is, then we can bring that alchemy to the whole. I guess that goes kind of full circle back to the question I asked of how can we change the world by changing ourselves?
Well, see, now the science is giving us the foundation for me to answer that question. So when we become aware, simply becoming aware of this connectivity, we begin to think of ourselves differently, begin to think of one another, our relationship to other people. Here's the thing, Steve, we are our viewing audience right now. We are the product of a story, a scientific story. We've been steeped in a scientific story for 150 years of separation, conflict, and lack, for lack of a better term. Separation, conflict, competition, that's the word I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. For 150 years, the science is now telling us that that is no longer our story. So we become aware. That is the first step. But once we have the awareness, there are actually things that we can do in our lives. What we know is that the human heart, the first organ to form in the human body, most of us have been taught that the brain is the master organ in the body, and we all know the brain is very important. But now what we're finding is the brain receives many of the instructions that tell it what to do from the heart. So the heart and the brain, two separate organs, and they work very, very closely together. So because our heart is the strongest biomagnetic field in our bodies, much stronger magnetically than the brain, we can consciously harmonize, attune our hearts to the earth and to our natural surroundings. And when we do that, it is the coupling of this effect. We're essentially piggybacking on the power of the Earth's magnetic fields. What the studies show is when we are able to attune ourselves, to harmonize with the Earth through our heart, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, we become much more intuitive, very deep intuition regarding other people and our surroundings and just the present moment. That it is good for our bodies. That coupling is a trigger for over 1,300 biochemical reactions, positive biochemical reactions in the body, including anti-aging and very powerful immune response. It is a direct hotline to the subconscious, and we can harmonize these fields. So what can we do? The deeper we can connect with our natural surroundings and with the Earth specifically, the magnetic fields of the Earth specifically, then I believe it is not only good for us, but now we know the term is that we are feeding the field. We're feeding the field that connects all things. And just as 9/11 showed us, when we do that, we have the opportunity to influence that field in a positive way to promote cooperation, to promote communication, to promote harmony. And I don't know about you and our listeners, but if we ever needed to promote those things at any time, I can't think of a better time than right now. So when people are saying, you know, what can we do? What can we do? We can run around in the world and fight against the things that we don't like. And what the science is showing us is when we fight against things, we actually contribute to the conditions that we're trying to change. There's a subtle and powerful difference between fighting against what we don't want and putting our energy into and focusing on what we choose to have in our lives. So choosing to have that peace and harmony and working toward that is very different than fighting against the things that we feel are preventing it. It's a subtle and it's a very, very powerful difference. Does that make sense, Steve, if I say it that way?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it drives me, a little nutty that, in mainstream media, whether it's sports or politics or whatever, so often the things are contexted around we've got to fight for blah, 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 because the new science is saying, just as you share, that it's about embracing, and feeling into and seeing and manifesting what is so.
Exactly. Let me give our readers, let me give our viewers a little something to really put their hooks into around that. The field that connects all things, the field that we now know is there, the scientifically based field that is accepted in physics, it recognizes harmony or chaos, and it doesn't make a lot of fine distinctions, apparently. So when we're out there in the streets, we're either putting our energy toward promoting something we really believe in with our hearts in a positive way, or we're fighting against the things that we don't want. We fight against the things we don't want. The field sees harmony or chaos. If you're fighting against the things you don't want, it's seeing chaos, and it's actually contributing to the inability to cooperate, the inability to communicate. And I'm not saying that there aren't times to fight against things, and I think we all have to determine for ourselves when that is. But it's good to be conscious of what is happening to you and the role that you're playing in the big picture when you're doing these things. So if you're fighting against, you're contributing generally to a chaos of some kind. And if you're working towards something, something that you believe in with your heart, that you are passionate about, compassion, care, gratitude, appreciation, those are the experiences that harmonize us with the earth, then we are actually feeding the field in a very positive way that can bring us closer to our heart's desire. And I think it's important to know that.
Yes, so embrace, transform, and radiate out.
Yeah.
Maybe a nice little three-step process. Thank you. The science, Gregg, that underpins your wisdom is just, it's amazing. And we've got questions pouring in. Let me go ahead and just bring in some from listeners. And apologies, listeners, that we can't get to all your questions. Wow, we've got just a whole, they're just pouring in. Here's one. This is, let's see, I don't see the name on this one. It says, when you're talking about connection, you're talking about human connection, but science is also showing the interdependence with nature. Yet we humans are continuing to destroy natural ecosystems that we depend. Can you talk about this?
Well, when I say connection, I'm including everything. I'm not excluding anything because what the science has shown us, how do you draw a line where human ends and where nature begins? And if you find that line, you've fallen into the ancient trap that keeps us feeling separate. That's what our ancestors have told us for so long. We cannot separate ourselves here from the world out there. We are deeply connected. And I am a scientist. I believe science is good. I think the scientific method is good. Science does not have all the answers. And science is only one way of learning. It's relatively new. It's only about 300 years old. So as a global population, are we destroying our natural environment? We have done a tremendous amount of that in the last 100, 150 years, and we continue to do it in some respects today. But it appears to me that the science now is coming full circle. And as the science understands more deeply our relationship to the earth, that translates into the policies that are becoming the way of life. It may not seem like it's happening fast enough for us, and in reality it could happen in a heartbeat. It could happen just like that, but it's happening gradually over time. I was encouraged. There is a scientific report that came out from a group in the Netherlands, and this was in 2014-15, and they identified on planet Earth what is called the safe zone. They identified 8 parameters that must be held in place, 8 natural parameters that must be held in place for us to be able to live and for life to flourish on our planet. And interestingly, climate was only one of those 8 parameters. Biodiversity was another one. The acidity of the oceans was another one. The quality of the ozone is another one. I mean, there were 8 parameters. They said all had to be in place. And they gauged where we are on each of these. And what I found surprising, climate was on there, but climate right now, they showed how far we have breached any of these parameters for the safe zone. And the one that has been breached the greatest, surprisingly, is not the climate. It was the oceans. The toxicity of the oceans, the biodiversity that's being destroyed through the chemicals and the pollution, and the acidification of the oceans. That was the largest of those zones that we breached. So are we destroying that which we are connected to? The answer is yes, we have in the past. We're becoming aware of it now, and the science seems to be how we learn. We learn by experiencing what we don't want before we say we don't want it. It's a very interesting way to learn. We do it in personal relationships. We enter a relationship and we say, I think this is going to work, and then we say, oh, that one didn't work, I think I'll try another one. Oh, that one didn't work, I think I'll try another one. So jobs, people, the environment, we learn by experiencing what we don't want, and hopefully we have the consciousness then to embrace and the wisdom to recognize what we've discovered so we can learn and move on in a positive way.
Amen to that. And Ralph, who is a conscious business change agent, he's got his certification, and you're a founding signatory, Gregg, of the Conscious Business Declaration. He says that your science has helped him not only ground his spiritual practice, but helped just elevate his business practice here as well, which brings in conscious business. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? You're a founding signatory, and of course the Conscious Business Declaration says we are one with humanity and all of life, business, and all institutions of the human community are integral parts of a single reality, interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent. And then I'll just read the next one that says, in line with this reality, then the purpose of business is to increase economic prosperity while contributing to a healthy environment and improving human well-being. So it goes on, of course, to talk about transparency and restoring the earth and much more. But
yeah, I am a founding signatory. I think this is where the change, you know, the grassroots change is important. And those of you watching this, I feel like in many respects, you're the choir. And we love the choir because the choir has been singing this song for the most of their adult lifetimes, the last 30, 40, 50 years. So we need the choir. But to create the kind of change, the depth and the magnitude of change that we're talking about, we have to reach so far beyond the choir. And there are people that feel that one way to do that is to go around the system, and there are benefits of doing that. And other people say to work within the existing systems to bring about that change, and there are advantages to doing that. Conscious business, I think, bridges both. There's a lot of good news happening right now, and part of the good news is we have all the solutions for all the big problems in the world, including economies. We now know how to create economies that are based in cooperation and sharing rather than competition and scarcity. Now think about that. Most of the businesses that we see today, the economic models, whether it's between nations or corporations, it's based on an idea of scarcity, that there is X amount of something and we have it and you want it, and here's how we're going to go about getting it, and competition. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong, good, or bad. I'm saying that model has led to the place where we are today. If we're not happy with where we are today, there's another model based on cooperation and sharing rather than the competition and the scarcity. And in cooperation and sharing, it is beyond a zero-sum kind of business. It's where everyone can benefit as well as use examples, and I know some people aren't happy with these, but Uber is a very good example of a new kind of business based on cooperation and sharing. It's difficult for taxi drivers who are in another paradigm of business, and it's all. Lyft is another one. Airbnb is another one. These kinds of companies, and I'm just using these as examples. I know there are a lot of them out there. They're based upon a very different way of thinking, where the people that have the business are the people that are using the business. And that's very different than the competition model and the scarcity model that we've seen in the past. The reason I think it's important is because we have never lived on a planet that has been connected the way we are today. We've never lived in a globalized planet of almost 8 billion people. So it makes no sense. I'm going to do this conversely. It makes tremendous sense that the business models that were based in isolation and separation, when nations used to be so separate from one another, the old business model, it may have made sense, and it got us to where we are today. But the idea of borders is changing. And the idea of globalization, we have global economies, we have global security, we have global money, we have global leadership, we have global communications, we have global medicine, we have global resources. We are moving into a one world community. So it makes sense that our business models would reflect that. And I personally would much rather work within an existing system and lead and inform that system in terms of how it can morph to adapt and evolve to the world that is now there, rather than fighting against and trying to bring down an existing system to create something new. I think we will have something new, and it will be the evolutionary result of the unsustainable models that we have now. So conscious business, that's why I signed on to this. I think this is at the foundation of what we're doing. We have to become aware that another kind of business is even possible to begin with, and that's where it all begins. I want to thank you, Steve, for creating the business models as well.
Well, yeah, thank you. There are four NGOs that created this. The humanities team, of course, but the Club of Budapest, Urban Laszlo, based out of Europe, the Goy Peace Foundation, which is the Sanji family in Japan, and then Chris Laszlo with the Fowler Center for Business out of Case Western Reserve University. So those four NGOs get the credit for creating this whole new standard for business in the 21st century. And I invite listeners, there's a link in the window, you can click on it. I invite you to go check it out now, theconsciousbusinessdeclaration.org. You'll see this whole new standard that's laid out that speaks about going beyond just a focus on financial profit to creating health and well-being, for humanity and the planet. I mean, is that so crazy? I'm a business person by background. I shared in Gregg's introduction, he's a business person by background, and this makes so much sense. So we invite you to go check it out, sign the declaration, and you'll see as well, there's a webinar we just created, a free 50-minute video that talks about this whole conscious business movement. I think you'll be excited watching it. And then on April 12th, we're starting an intro course for conscious business. It gives you a 360-degree view. It's only $300, so you'll learn about that on that site as well. Okay, let me come back to questions here. Again, there are so many apologies to many of you whose questions I won't be able to bring in because we just don't have that much time in an hour. But this is a question here. It says, Gregg, we know that our self-esteem is directly responsible for the creation of our personal reality. What's the best way to change our self-esteem to a more positive one? And this is from Jahara.
Well, it's a great question, and I actually have a new book that is coming out October 10th of this year of 2017. It is called Human by Design, and one of the goals of that book is to do precisely this. I mentioned we are steeped in a scientific story. It is a false story of separation, insignificance. We're taught that we are insignificant beings, both physically, emotionally, psychologically, and those ideas, as benign as they sound, they play out in huge ways in our lives. There's a new scientific story that's emerging. It's telling us we're based in a world of cooperation, that we are connected, not separate from one another. And the core of this book, I don't want to get into it a lot today, that evolution, as you and I have been taught, for the story of our origin no longer fits. The evidence is no longer supporting the story of evolution for human emergence. Something else, the DNA is telling us now that something else is responsible for our origin 200,000 years ago. And we begin to change that story. That is the foundation of our self-esteem. When we ask the question, the deepest question we can ask ourselves is, who am I? And we've been led to believe that we are separate from the earth, separate from one another, separate from our past, from our future, from the cosmos, that we are powerless when it comes to our own bodies and our own health. And all of that is changing. And as we embrace, so here's a long answer to the short question, as we embrace the new discoveries that tell the deepest truths of our existence, by embracing those truths, we begin to feel differently about ourselves. And that is where our self-esteem begins. So, and this is so key. I mean, it's not just a philosophical question. You know, a lot of our young people, or people watching this, you've got kids in school, we know that bullying is a big problem all over the world, not just in America, not just in the West, all over the world. And we know that cyberbullying is a big problem. Here's what the studies are showing. Bullying is only a problem for young people who have not yet found a rock-solid anchor within which to place their self-esteem and the knowledge of who they are. So they're taught that they're insignificant. They're taught that life is nothing special, that life is cheap, and they're surrounded with reinforcements of that, movies and videos, and depending on where we live. Those are the young people that are so deeply influenced when someone criticizes them. We base our decisions of when to save a human life or when to take a life on the way we answer, who are we? We solve our problems based on the way we answer, who am I? Who are we? We base our relationships, every relationship, every intimate partner that we invite into our lives, into our homes, is based upon the way we see ourselves and think of ourselves. Who am I? The kinds of jobs that we create for ourselves. And when you get right down to it, it's front and center, the most profound and relevant question beyond philosophical question. So as we embrace the deep truths of the new science, it is telling us how very precious, how very powerful, how very connected, how very unique we really are. And when we begin instilling those values in our young people at an early age, think of what the world looks like when young people grow up believing that they live in a world of cooperation rather than a dog-eat-dog world where they have to fight for everything tooth and nail, and that something is out there to get them every time they make a wrong move, and that they're connected to their friends, they're connected to their family and the earth, they aren't separate from their family. That's where the real change begins. For we adults, I'm in my 60s now, I am now coming full circle with what this information means to me. And what it does is it reinforces what I've always sensed intuitively, but never had anything real to hang my intuitive beliefs upon. Once we see it as a scientific study, and you say, well, my God, they just prove what I've felt. Now there's no question, and you embrace that in your heart, and your self-esteem changes in response to that as you begin to feel part of rather than separate from the world.
Yeah, I'm into that. And even right now, Greg, you can feel into this. It's not just something cognitive. This oneness,
Sure.
which is what meditation is, right? Or prayer, where we close our eyes and we just go into that place of feeling and of deep connection, and all of these things that are shared about meditation, that the feelings of bliss and peace and grace and beauty, we can feel into that. That's the one presence. That's our real essence. Yeah, Greg.
So I'm going to follow up on that, something you and I talked about a little earlier. I want to give you all something concrete that you can take with you from this program, and I'm going to base it on science. 1991, scientists discovered, to their surprise, every heart has about 40,000 specialized cells that are called sensory neurites. They're in the heart. They're like brain-like cells, but they're not in the brain. They're in the heart. But they are put together they're concentrated in such a way that they're actually called the little brain in the heart. And the reason I'm saying this is because the little brain in the heart, those cells, they think independently of the cranial brain. They remember independently of the cranial brain, and they feel independently of the cranial brain. So when we are talking about connection, if we want to improve our self-esteem and feel more connected, and make those connections, it's not going to happen so much with the brain. The brain gives us the information, but it's about the feeling that we have from the information. So one of the ways to access these 40,000 cells, and I've spent a lot of time since the 1980s with the monks and nuns and the abbots in the monasteries of Tibet and Bolivia and Peru and Nepal and India and all through the desert Southwest, learning from our ancestors, what is it they know that we've forgotten? Or what do they know that we're only now beginning to understand? And every one of them, as different as they are from one another, as different as their traditions are, they always begin their healing and they begin their connectivity by moving into their hearts. Now we know they're moving into these 40,000 sensory neurites. And one of the ways that they do that, if you're listening to this and you're driving or operating heavy equipment, please don't close your eyes right now. But if you're in a safe place, you can close your eyes. One of the ways they do this is they will close their eyes, and just closing your eyes sends a powerful statement to your body. It means that you are now shifting your focus from the outer to the inner world. I know most of you know that, but I want to share with you what it's doing. It sends a signal to your body that there's a shift in awareness. They then gently touch their heart center in a way that's comfortable to them. So sometimes they use just a couple of fingers or an open palm. In Buddhist traditions, they use the mudra like this. I'm not saying you have to do that. But if you can touch your heart center gently, what that does, your awareness will always go to the place in your body where you feel the touch. So when you touch your heart center, your awareness automatically moves to your heart. Now you are focused in the area of those 40,000 sensory neurites. And then you slow your breathing just a little bit, maybe 5 seconds on the inhale or the exhale. And that shift of the slower breathing tells your body that you're in a place that is safe. It tells your body that you're safe. And it's from that place that you can now shift your awareness into your heart and begin a dialogue. This is a place where your heart intelligence, your heart wisdom becomes more accessible. It's always available to you, but where it becomes really accessible because it is the focus. It's in this place where you can ask the questions that seem to have no answers, or that you can simply not ask any questions at all. Just simply be in deep communion with your own body, with the earth, if you're outdoors in nature, with another person halfway around the world, or in another room in the house, or in a chair right across from you. The distance doesn't make any difference. It's from this experience that we begin to harmonize with those magnetic fields that I talked about at the beginning of the program. And the next step, the last step, is if you can feel, to the best of your ability, a positive, life-affirming feeling while you are focused in your heart. And the researchers, scientists at the Institute of Heart Math have found words like gratitude, appreciation, care, compassion, those 4 words, any one of those 4. Any one of those 4 typically will work for almost anyone. So you find what works for you. You know yourself better than anyone else. But those words typically are words that really help. The feeling that comes from gratitude actually sets into motion an electrical connection between the heart and the brain, and an optimum frequency. It's 0.1 hertz. It's a very low frequency. And that low frequency is what tunes us to the fields of the earth in a really, really powerful way. So when you do this, you feel better about yourself. It does help with self-esteem as well. But it is also a way to deeply harmonize and attune with the world around you, to deeply harmonize with others in an intuitive way. And it's a very healthy thing for us to do. Simply connecting with our heart, the one organ in our body that has the strongest magnetic field that couples with the magnetic field of the planet. So I want to say it before we close out here.
Gregg, yeah, wow, it always, but especially in these times, since following the election here in November and the other things that are going on in the world outside of the United States, it's comforting just to hear your science and your manner, and the way you describe your science, Gregg. So beautiful. Let me bring in another question here. This is from, says, hello, Gregg. I would like to ask, when you were talking about consciousness, what do you exactly mean by that? Because many people use the word, but I'm not sure if all of us have the same meaning in our minds about that. Thank you, Gabriella.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriella. That's a good question. And what science now is finding is consciousness. You can't separate anything from consciousness. It is all-inclusive. Consciousness, it is the container within which we are having our experiences. It is the bridge between our inner and our outer worlds. It is the mirror in the world around us of what we claim to be true and our beliefs within us. Consciousness, everything falls under the umbrella of consciousness. This is where physicists are now really struggling, because they have been conditioned to believe that consciousness is something separate from the laws of physics. So they separated those, and that separation worked well enough to develop the equations, but now when they try to unify everything, the elusive unified field theory, they can't do it. And the reason is because they have left out the factor of us in consciousness. Professor John Wheeler from Princeton University, who passed recently, he was a colleague of Einstein's, and he passed just a few years ago. He was a pioneer carrying the torch for this kind of thinking in the scientific community. What John Wheeler said, and he said it so eloquently, he said that we are little pieces of the universe. We're looking at ourselves, building ourselves in a process that's ongoing. So what he was saying was this: we can build telescopes to look deep into space for the most distant planets and stars and galaxies, or we can build microscopes to look deep into the smallest particles of matter. And what John Wheeler told us is we will never find the most distant star, and we'll never find the smallest particle of matter. And here's the reason why. Because consciousness, when we place our consciousness, when we look with the expectation that something will appear, something will appear. So we will continually find smaller and smaller and smaller particles of matter. We'll continually find more and more distant parts of our galaxy and other galaxies, the universe, because consciousness is a creative act unto itself. Consciousness is both a noun and a verb. And the act of looking for something to be there is the act of creation. By expecting something is there, we are creating something to be there. And this, I am speaking at the CERN Superconducting Super Collider, the conference in Geneva, Switzerland, I think in 2 months, in May. And this is something we're going to be talking about. They have built the most complex device on the planet to smash the particles into the smallest pieces, looking for the ultimate smallest particle. And every time they find something they think is the smallest particle, there's always something beneath that. And I think John Wheeler explained to us why that is. So, yeah, another long answer to a short question, but it was a very good question. Consciousness is all that is. That was my answer.
Yeah, it comes back to in my intro, as I was talking about the one presence, the divine, this energetic, this energy that, because everything is energy, you know. But I love the words that you put to it, you know, in a verb and a noun. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, well, Gregg, we are coming up here just near the end of this program. So let me, can I invite you to share your call to action here with people, ways that they can follow you, and things that you'd like to, for this community of oneness that's global, things that you'd like to invite them to.
Sure. So, well, I guess first, if you'd like to know more about what I'm doing, where I'm going to be speaking, any of those things, go to there's only one official website. There's some other ones out there, but there's only one that's mine. So it's www.greggbraden.com. It's G-R-E-G-G, 2 G's there. My mom did that intentionally and made me a Gregg and not a Gregory. 1 G is a Gregory, 2 G's is a Gregg. So www.greggbraden, B-R-A-D-E-N.com. You know, I know that there's a lot of tension in the world. I was in Australia recently, and I'll be in Europe here, as I mentioned, just another couple of months. And a lot of this I attribute, Steve, so many people rely on what they're being shown in mainstream media. In mainstream media, I want to caution it. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, good, or bad. I'm saying it is someone's opinion and a snapshot of what they feel they'd like to focus on in the moment in time. There's so much good news happening in the world right now. We have all the solutions to all the big problems. We already know what doesn't work. We know what doesn't work, so we can stop trying to do the things that don't work and put our energy into things that do work. We know how to create conscious business. We know how to heal every organ in the human body. It's been demonstrated under laboratory conditions if we have the right environment. We have all the food to feed all the people in the world. We know how to create electricity with 0 greenhouse gases in a way that is very cheap, very affordable, and accessible to everyone in the world. We have all this stuff. So what's lacking is the thinking that makes room in our lives for what already exists in the world. These things already exist out there. So I'm going to invite our listeners, if you have not yet taken the opportunity to mourn the passing of the world that you have known in the past. We're living a new normal. The old world is gone. We cannot go back to it. We can't go back to the economy of 15 years ago or the climate of 20 years ago. It no longer exists. So if we can, it doesn't have to be a big outward ceremony, but if we can simply acknowledge that there are things that have changed in our lives, in our world, and vocalize that. Say, yeah, I miss those things. And by doing that, begin to let those old ways of living go to create the space to invite all of the new ways of living and the new solutions, the beautiful new world of connectivity that's already here. This is key. That little exercise that I shared you, deceptively simple, it's very, very powerful. When we go into our hearts, and we access our heart's wisdom in this way, we connect to the earth And all of a sudden, all those things happening in the world seem very different. They're still there, but they take on less of a significance because we shift our focus into what's really, really key for our lives. Politics come and go, presidents come and go, governments come and go. We're here. And I think this is what's important. We're here and we're a family. And we live in a world of cooperation and connection and oneness, and we're seeing the world move to reflect that, what we've already claimed in our hearts. So that's what I'm going to say, I think, Steve, to close out here today. I'd like to say, do I have how much time? Okay, one more thing I want to say. Because when I say these things, people say to me, it sounds like a lot of work. To change the way I think, to let those things go, new things in, do this heart-brain thing, it sounds like a lot of work. When I was 10 years old, my father left our family when I was 10. I come from a very dysfunctional alcoholic family. My father left. My mother gave me a book when my father left, and she said, read this. And it was a book called The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, written in the early 1900s. And there was a chapter in that book where he talked about the meaning of work. In the bottom line, he said, work is our love made visible. Work is our love made visible. Does it take work to change the way we think in the world? Absolutely it does. And I'm going to be very honest with you about that. But I think we're worth it. I think this world is worth it. It's our love made visible. And that's where I'd like to close my part today, Steve.
That is perfect. Work is our love made visible. So, boy, certainly that speaks to our mission and humanities team. And yeah. Wow, Gregg, so fabulous to have you with us. Thank you for your many contributions to the world. Gregg is going to be part of the science panel again during Global Oneness Day. If you go to globalonenesssummit.org, you can register for Global Oneness Day. It's on October 24th. That's a Tuesday this year. So thanks again, Gregg. I'm going to come back and thank you some more, but this one thank you gets me started. Just an amazing hour with you. Thank you for being here. The Humanities team, as I mentioned earlier, is a member of this Conscious Business Alliance. It's composed of these 4 NGOs, the Humanities Team, Club of Budapest, Goy Peace Foundation, and Fowler Center for Business. And invite you again, there's a link in the window to, if you haven't already, go to consciousbusinessdeclaration.org. Encourage you and your family, coworkers, friends to sign the declaration. It's time that we create, that business become a generator of nurturing health and well-being, and of course financial profits too out in the world. Also, as you probably know, Humanities Team's in the lead on this Conscious Business Initiative. It's a global effort to transform business. We know this is an ambitious project, but with your help, we're making it possible. We invite you to donate $5, $25, $50, whatever you might be able to afford to the Conscious Business Movement. We are a nonprofit organization, and your financial contributions help to slingshot, really help us create further reach out in the world with this Conscious Business Movement. I think they're putting a link in the window for that as well. Upcoming programs that you don't want to miss. Neil Donald Walsh is joining me next Thursday, March 30th at 9 o'clock Pacific time. That's our normal time, to talk about his latest Conversations with God book. It's called Book 4, Awakening the Species. We all thought Home with God was the last Conversations with God book, but it turns out there was a 10th being born, and it's coming out now. So don't miss that. We'll talk about Neil Donald Walsh's newest book next Thursday. Also, if you go to livinginone.com, you can see all of the coming programs. They're amazing. Patricia Cota-Robles, Gene Houston, others are coming. Invite you to go to the livinginone.com. You can register for the programs. They're free. And if you miss any of the programs, we send out a link so that you can watch free for 48 hours. This program is focused on living in oneness. So I want to invite you to something called Community Circle. It's only $10 a month. It's a virtual, intentional community for people that are living in oneness all over the world. It's a place that you can collaborate and connect with spiritual leaders like Gregg and others and be involved in spiritual activism. There's continuous access to over 350 programs from the Living in Oneness Summit and Global Oneness Day. You can listen with your family and friends year-round for free as part of the Community Circle experience. There's also a weekly Heart Circle that's like this, where we use Zoom to come together with members, and we share about our journey and oneness, our successes and challenges, a real intimate thing for people on the journey. So I invite you to go to humanitiesteam.org. You can scroll down to the rectangle that says Community Circle to learn more about it. It's only $10 a month. I think they're putting a link in the window here as well. Okay, I want to thank again Gregg Braden. Thank you so much, Gregg, for being here with me. What just a fabulous special guest.
My pleasure, Steve. Thank you. Thank you so much. Look forward to next time.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Gregg. Awesome. And I want to thank my colleagues here as well, Caroline Chang, Garth Catterall, Nanette Kennedy, Dee Meyer, and others that helped create this Living in Oneness program. And I'm saving the best for last, all of you. Thank you for participating and prioritizing this program into your day. In closing, I want to invite all of us to really live as one. Of course, we'll each do this in our own way, and when we live as one, we connect with this peace and power and presence that is the divine, that's our own essence. Okay, we'll see you next Thursday, March 30th at 9 o'clock Pacific time, when we'll be talking with Neil Donald Walsh about Conversations with God, Book 4, Awakening the Species. Have a great day, everybody. Have a great day, Gregg. Good to see you, man. Take care, everybody.